Good afternoon, everyone out in LEC land. This is Dr. Ana Valdez with another edition of Ask an Educator. But today we have a special guest, and it's going to be Ask a Storyteller. Today we have Laura Fajardo Arbeláez. And Laura, I apologize if I've messed up the second part of your last name. But Laura is a bilingual mental health professional and educator dedicated to empowering youth and uplifting diverse communities. She was born in Bogotá, Colombia. She has lived in several different places before arriving in the US as a freshman in high school. A journey that shaped her deep understanding of resilience, belonging, and the power of storytelling, which fits very nicely into our storytelling internship or fellowship. I apologize, fellowship. As a proud Latina, Laura brings her cultural heritage and lived experiences into her work, creating spaces where students and families feel seen, heard, and supported. With a master's in clinical mental health counseling and a bachelor's in sociology from Regis University, Laura has built a career at the intersection of education, mental health, and community advocacy. Her journey includes roles as a youth mental health and mindfulness coach, mental health counselor, and bilingual child abuse prevention coordinator, where she has developed impactful programs on emotional regulation, immigrant support, mindfulness, and child abuse prevention, all in both Spanish and English, so completely bilingual. Whether she's connecting with families or leading workshops or sharing her journey with like us today, she brings heart, humor, and a deep commitment to equity to everything she does. So without further ado, I want to present and bring on camera with me Laura Fajardo. I'm sorry, Laura. I practiced and I still messed it up. I apologize. I'm so sorry.
Wonderful the first time, the second time it's harder. No hard feelings. Nice to be here. How are you?
Good. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm so happy to have you in the studio with us. If you hear beeping, they're doing a lot of road construction, so I apologize. I try to move as far away from the noise, but it just seems to be kind of everywhere. So thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you so much for being willing to share your story with us and with the community at large. We have this broadcast, as with the fellowship, all over the United States. As I've said to our team here, I can't wait till the day till we have a international person as part of our fellowship. So then we know we've made it, I guess. I don't know. So Laura, tell us a little bit. I read your bio, all amazing stuff, but tell us a little bit about your origin story, who you are. Talked a little bit about you being from Bogota, but tell us, a little bit more and get us excited about what you have to say to us today.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. It's great to be here, and I have to admit, every time it's like, tell us a little bit more about your story. I feel like my heart pitter patter a little bit because and this is a big part of the fellowship. Like that's a big ask, and also such an important practice to not only connect with our stories after we've lived them and while we're living them, but also to really focus on how we relate it. So,
Sure.
My origin story, I was born in Bogotá, Colombia, to wonderful parents, a beautiful family. Colombia is my homeland. I left for the first time when I was about 9 years old, and due to my dad's job, we moved around in a lot of different places, almost like every 3 or 4 years. But Colombia's always been home. So no matter where I am, I feel very deeply connected. And I think, when I was a child, I was like, I just want to go home. When can we go back home? And I missed it. There was a nostalgia and a longing. And as I've grown and looked at my story, I see it differently. I feel like it's such a privilege to have met people from so many different walks of life while being so young and being open and exposed to difference, and walking into any room and knowing that there was so many different people there and so many different stories, not assuming that we were all the same, or that there was always something that conversation that I could learn from someone or someone could learn from me. So in a way, that's like where education comes into. Like I you read my bio. I am not trained in the education field, but being a mental health professional and working kind of in social services, I always found myself doing prevention programs in schools. So from the moment I started working, I've always been, whether it be domestic violence, healthy relationships, child abuse prevention, immigrant rights, Latino advocacy. My roles have always been, and then in the mental health sphere, going into schools and providing that information. And now I am in a school here in Kansas City, Kansas. I work as the family and community engagement specialist. And so it's kind of been a great position to wrap up all my experience into one and to really still be in the field of education, mental health, and connecting with people.
Excellent. I did not know that you were in KCK. I don't know why I thought you were someplace outside of Kansas City. I apologize.
So you're fine. We're close. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. Well, at the LEC, we do a lot of work with the district over there, and we have a lot of great relationships with the various members from administration all the way through. As a matter of fact, yesterday I was at Rosedale Middle School.
Yeah, you were right down the street, basically.
But I'm also a product of the Kansas City, Kansas public school system.
I love
it. Yeah. So anytime I can whoop up the KCK school district, I will, because, went to school there and K through 12 and just really have the benefit. And I tell kids all that all the time. And, you as a mental health professional, that frequently our young people, especially our young Latinos, they're frequently told that, they really don't have a future. There's not much out there for them. There's, they should just go into a role that, whether that's something that they have, basically they kill their dreams.
Yeah.
And I was telling students, I was at Argentine Middle a week or so ago.
Yeah.
About 10 days ago. And that's where I went to middle school. And when the kids sat down and I told them, hey, I went to this school. And one of the kids says, well, what does it look like? And I'm like, pretty much the same, I think. But it's been a really long time ago. Yeah. But I closed with, don't let people make decisions about your future. Don't let people tell you what your story should be. You write it. You tell them what you're going to do. You show them what you can do. Just keep following that path. And I think that's just so important that we don't box in our young people. And I think, especially our young Latinos, I think we just, whether we do it as family members or whether we do it as school teachers, it's just not the best that we can do for our young people.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think it's, there is this, obviously a reality that as you go through life, you learn, and then you can always look at anyone younger than you and say, hey, when I was in your situation, this is what's going on, and provide advice and support in that way. But I do think that we do it like our youth are exposed to so much more in the world nowadays than ever before. And they actually do have the world in their hands, that any sort of, based with their development age, this is where my mental health stuff comes in. Any little tap isn't like, no, you shouldn't do that, feels to them like a huge fall. And we got to be really mindful of what messages we're putting out to our youth, because they can hold on to that from middle school, into high school, and then hold on, and it becomes kind of a reality for them. Like, oh, that was never open to me. But the reality is that we're just kind of clipping wings if we do that. And, being in KCK for me has been amazing in terms of finding a community, being from another country. I don't have a lot of family in Kansas City. I've kind of been everywhere, but here there's such a solid sense of community. And one of those little mental shifts that I say to students all the time, I'm like, you belong here. Like, this is your school. I am in Argentine Middle School too, and it does look the same as Honey, but it's like, like this is yours. Like, how are you going to live your story here? And because our student population right now is predominantly Latino, and so it's like, look around, like stand in your space, and don't let anyone tell you what you're doing here. Like, you get to kind of decide what you're doing here, and giving them the opportunity to speak about it, to practice what it sounds like to talk about themselves. Also considering that a lot of our students, by the time they get here, they've already lived such a big life and so many things other people can't relate to. It's like, there's value in that. Like, that is a worthy story to tell. Yeah.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, all of that is like so on point. It was funny. I like this show called Finding Your Roots, which is
Mm-hmm.
on PBS, KCPT, public television. Doing a prop. They don't sponsor us or anything, but I just love KCPT. I love PBS. But they have Finding Your Roots, and they did a story. It's Dr. Henry Gates Jr., I believe, and he did a story on Mario Lopez.
Mm-hmm.
And the story that he did on Mario Lopez talked about who's Latino, who's Mexicano, and he talked about his family coming to this country about the same time my family came and settled in Argentina and in Armadale. And that was during the revolution, right? And it was for the first time that I had ever heard anyone talk about the Mexican people. And I know that the students are not all Mexican that live in KCK, that go to the KCK schools, or that live in the Kansas City metro area, or live in the United States. But he said this specifically. He's like, your family members were refugees fleeing war.
Mm.
And they got to the United States and were hoping for a better place to raise family and to be safe. And when he said that, and I think about my great grandmother coming during that period of time, I never saw them as refugees. I never saw them as escaping a war-torn country.
Mm-hmm.
That was so unusual during that period of time, but it's commonplace, unfortunately, today. And now we have, people coming from other parts of Latin America, other parts of the world from war-torn communities, and we talked about them being refugees and living such massive amounts of life before the age of 13, right?
Yeah.
So taking that all into perspective, how do you help young people? And this would be a great message for our teachers out there. How do you help them find their voice and talk about their journey and create their origin stories for their young people that they have in their classrooms? That might have had that experience. Sorry. Experience.
That's a great question. I think educators all over the United States are probably asking themselves that right now. Like, how can we bring the stories of our students into our lessons, into our lesson plans, into our teaching? And I think, honestly, like in a very simple way, it's all about creating a space for it. And a space in a sense of safety. Because the reality is that in my position, being in family engagement, I actually have the privilege, like I get all the phone calls of families that need to figure out something about the school. And I actually have the time and the space to take their call. I'm not the teacher who just finished teaching a class and has 3 minutes to teach the next class. And I'm not the front office who's so busy and doing amazing work all day, or our admin who's running around. This position is created for that. And what I've noticed is that, I have a little cafecito stand and I offer them a coffee or a tea or some water. We sit down and the story flows, and if you're able to listen and to be supportive, I think they talk. And I think for young kids, it has a lot to do with not allowing others to define their story. Mm-hmm. I have an example for myself. Like I in the early 90s, late 80s, Colombia was, going through a very, very hard political time. I mean, I'll just talk about that. Obviously, we have very robust political history, but and here in the United States, that really came to the forefront when a series on Netflix came on, and Narcos, and everyone was watching it, and all of a sudden, people were talking about this story that had a lot of personal charge for me and a lot of people I know, because being in Colombia in that time was being impacted, being close, and what I realized was that like people had assumptions about me or my dad or our family or, in all spaces, because they think that what they see on the show is exactly how it happens. And very rarely did someone say like, what was actually your experience? Like, I think that not only creating the space, but also being careful about assuming that the student's experience matches what we see on the news or what we might read about, because stories are actually about human connection. They're about companionship. They could be about experiencing something very terrible, but even then there's nuggets of like, and I got through because that person I was by talked to me all night, and or this other family supported us and we went together. It's about that human connection. And so when we allow a person to tell their story with their words, rather than like, Laura, how was it when you were at Narcos in the early 90s in Colombia? It's like, oh, I don't know. But I remember, gathering at my grandparents' house with my whole family during a time where there was like light rationing, and we decided that we were all just going to go eat dinner in the same house. And me and my cousins were playing in the dark and playing kind of like this little fun hide and seek game. And that's what I remember. I don't remember what was happening on the streets and what was happening outside. I remember the feeling of warmth and connection in my home. So all that to say that I think, opening the space and being mindful of our own bias, our own assumptions, and allowing them to use their own words and choice to how they tell the story is a really important piece to create that space where, they actually want to connect with that part.
Excellent. Mm-hmm. Got to give you some snaps there. I love that. Mm-hmm. And I love the fact that you have a cafecito stand in your office.
Without it.
Dang it. Had I known, I would have gone to visit you. I did go to the office just to check it out, but they were like, can we help you? And I'm like, I was just coming in to say hi.
The cafecito with Ms. Laura in the basement, please.
I wish I would have known that. Are you in the old building or the new building?
No, I'm in the old building.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So there's definitely a basement, and it's kind of, all of that stuff.
It's wonderful. I love it here. It's such history. Yes. We had the Wyandotte Historical Association recently here, and they were like, wow, this building. So just being in it also feels like, part of a bigger story that I get to participate in. So
Sure. Yeah, no, absolutely. That's the beauty of it. And that's what I was sharing with the kids, that the students when I was there. Not only did I go to school there, and at that time it was a junior high, so it was 7th, 8th, and 9th. Yep. My parents graduated high school from there because, so it was a high school back in the day before Harmon was built. And, they graduated shortly after the big flood that happened there in Argentina and Wyandotte County, South Wyandotte County. But so I talked a little bit to the kids about the history and what they were, not only the history that they have, right, as coming in, or maybe a young history here in the United States, but also the history of the people that had come before them. And so trying to draw that connection. Tell me your thoughts, if you have any, about drawing the connections to what their experiences are and what experiences have preceded them, and how do you bring that together? Is that anything you use? And if so, how does that benefit or support your work?
Yeah, that's also a wonderful question. I mean, I think, as human beings, we're kind of wired to see where the difference is outside of us. And that's a very primal instinct around safety, right? We're like, our deep ancestors were like, is that a rock or is that a bear? Right? Like, what is it? And so it's like kind of our tendency to look around and identify difference and similarity. And we tend to kind of be close to what we identify as similar, which is a very natural process. Sure. However, at this day and age, we are, bombarded by different narratives and biases and information about others that aren't necessarily written or picked by them. And so I do think that in the education field, for me specifically, like even, I'm a Latina, mental health professional. I have worked in many different environments where I'm like one of the only Latinas, one of the only immigrants, one of the only Spanish speakers. And working with kids, I have to tell, let's say the staff that is a Latina immigrant all the time, like the assumption that I can walk into a space of Latinos and say, hey, we're all alike, is not true. There's differences in, ethnicity, country of origin, language, all sorts of things. And so I think that when we tend to find that similarity and only seek out that similarity, we're actually maybe in a, maybe pushing ourselves away from maybe connecting with someone that may have a similar experience. What I explained to you about, being from Colombia and having to leave in that time and coming to the US, like when I talk to any immigrant, they're like, oh my gosh, yeah, I remember how hard it was for my mom to leave me in that American school that first day. And it doesn't matter if that family was from Colombia or Ghana or, El Salvador. We all remember that experience of watching our mom in a foreign country say, like, have a good day, like, besitos, take care, and despite of our differences, that humanity is kind of what connects us. And it comes up all the time with the kids, because there's challenges, and they're kind of like, I call them thermometers, everything that's happening at home, that's happening in the streets, like they feel inside their body, and then they come to school and it all kind of just bubbles over. And sometimes I really have to be intentional about slowing it down and getting two students together and say, what really is the problem here? Like maybe there's a lot more here that you guys can agree on than the things you disagree on. And I think building our tolerance muscle, like you might be different than me, but that doesn't mean that we have to separate, is a really good skill to have right now. I think if we continue to just, build walls, then we're not able to connect. And so maybe being curious and leading with curiosity rather than judgment is a good way to build those connections.
Very good. Yes, especially in middle school.
Mm-hmm.
Those years are tough anyway, regardless of where you come from and what your history is or how you got here. They're just tough because your body is going through so many changes. I always say that those are my peeps because they're smaller little kids. They're smaller little people, and not little anymore. A lot of them are taller than me, and I don't know what happened, why I got the short gene, and maybe they revamped the gene, whatever, for height because the kids are all taller than me. And so anyway, yeah, it's just hard physically. And so this is all the emotional and mental pieces onto that as well.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit, because we could chat all day. Now that I know where you're at, I'm just going to come and drop in and have a cafecito. Tell us a little bit about the Expresión Fellowship. How did you hear about it? Why did you decide to do it? And then, any kind of words of encouragement or, run the opposite direction type of thing, whatever you want to say on that.
No, definitely words of encouragement. So I relocated to Kansas City about 2 years ago. I spent about 4 years in Colombia. After being in the US for a long time, I did go home. And that was kind of, as I said at the beginning, it was like, I want to go home. Well, I went home. And I came back with my son, Mateo, which has been amazing. But coming back, what I realized was that my story changed. I had lived in the United States for almost 20 years and then spent 4 years in my home country, very close to my family, my roots. And then I came back and I felt different than the person I was in that initial time there. Because those like elusive parts of my identity became really like the ones that really had to become concrete in me had the opportunity to, and then the ones that didn't fit really kind of fell off. And so coming back, there's been a lot of intentionality on how I move and navigate my life in what my son calls the United, nowadays. During that time, I saw Latinx Education Collective. I started doing a lot of research about what was happening in Kansas City, who was doing what. And as I started hearing about the fellowship, I have to be brutally honest that as a lifelong writer in my journals and everything, and having this dream of one day I will actually dedicate some real like intentional time for this, I was like, it's not the time. I read it and I kept reading and I was like, well, I'm not technically an educator right now. And so that's the first thing I would say. Like anytime we're going to do something scary, like jumping off the diving board, that little voice of self-doubt creeps in. And joining the fellowship was actually an active practice in being like, nope, I'm not going to listen to you because I think I turned in my application at like 11:58 p.m. the day it was due. It's like, okay, So that would be the first thing. I mean, if anyone's looking at these opportunities and the first instinct is like, not right now, not for me. I would check in with yourself again and just kind of see if you still have that pull. And listening to our intuition. Now I know that it was very timely for me to actually participate, and it introduced a lot of new concepts. I think we're living in an interesting time that could be labeled in a lot of different ways. But anytime things feel kind of chaotic and it's hard to know where you are, I think connecting with ourselves and our story is a really valuable place to feel the ground underneath your feet and to get strength to move forward. And in a lot of ways, the fellowship did this for me. The practice of writing my story and connecting with my journey map really highlighted things that needed to be told that were different than like what my head would have said, this is what I want to write about. In the active process of going through the program, and thinking about critical hope, and what are the parts in my story that maybe I'm still talking about them in a way that feels very like doesn't serve me in my fullness, like maybe I talk about certain parts about myself and I'm taking away little parts of myself in the way I speak of it. Connecting with that really showed me that there's a lot of potential to, reframe and express gratitude and connect with myself fully, so I can fully stand here and tell other people like, hey, this is who I am, this is what I'm doing, and this is why I'm doing it. That makes us feel empowered. I think it's helped me a lot with my own self-love, my own confidence, my own connection with who I am, as a human, as a mom, as an educator. I have a son now, so I think about that all the time. Like, how I would tell my story when I wasn't a mom to how I would tell my story to my own son is different. What parts do I want him to carry? So it's just such a robust, and there's so much potential when we connect with that, and identifying the resistance and working to push through it rather than allow it to push on you.
Bravo. Yes, I love that. I love that whole, everything you said was right on point to the fellowship. Here's one thing I want to remind everybody. It is free.
It is free.
It is free. You don't have to pay anything. They meet virtually. I think it's 9 weeks.
Mhm.
That you meet virtually for an hour and a half, I believe, after the initial kind of opening and this is what we do and this is how we do it. So take advantage of that. I do know that the applications will open up, I believe, in the next couple of months. And then, you apply, like you said, you kind of go through your own, whatever it is that you have to go through. And there hasn't been anybody that I've spoken to that has gone through it. Those that started 4 years ago and those that just finished that I've been interviewing over the past month that said almost verbatim, I didn't think it was the right time. I didn't think that I could do it. I didn't think that I had, the skill set or whatever. And on the flip side, it's like, wow, I had everything inside of me. I just needed to trust that I could do it. I needed to trust myself. And so it kind of goes back to what you were saying in the beginning about your origin story. When your parents came and they brought you, whether it was for work or whether once you made that move finally to the U.S. with your family, they had to trust that what they were doing was the right thing for you and for if you have siblings or other family members that came with you. And that's the one thing that Latinos have the ability is this amazing strength to make these life-changing decisions that change the trajectory, can't even say that word now, of their entire family. Your parents, you with your son, my great grandmother, that they traveled the distance. They made decisions that changed our story forever. And we're in our 5th generation now. And those little ones have no idea what it was that brought us here and why we are here, but we get to share that story with them. We get to tell them about, for me, the Petra and the Luz and and that was my grandmother's name was Petra and the other one was Luz. So, it's like perfect. I'm like, how could you not have a great story with two people with those kind of names? But yeah, I mean, we all have that. We have that ability. So thank you for sharing your stories with us. Thank you for being a part of the fellowship. Thank you for doing what you're doing with the kiddos that you're doing it with, and if it's in the basement, cool. It's nice and cool and you get to decorate how you want because nobody goes down there. But at the end of the day, it really does matter. It really does matter that you're present and that you offer presence for your families. And just know, just because you're not in a classroom, your role is every bit of an educator, because you're as we see it here at LEC is it's creating the environment, creating the word just went out of my mouth, but for the advancement of Latino youth. And so doing all of that is part of the whole education plan for young people, for young Latinos to be successful in our world today and in the future. So thank you for all of that. Again, everyone, if you are interested in being a part of the Expresión Storytelling Fellowship, keep an eye open on all of our social media platforms. That should be happening shortly, and I say shortly, in the next month or so, because it's already October, and that snuck up on us. Happy Hispanic Heritage Month to you, and happy Hispanic Heritage Month to everyone else. We have 2 more weeks. We got to make the best of it. There are a couple of things happening within the LEC umbrella that I invite everyone to participate in. The first one is this weekend. We have the Chicano Art Festival, and it is in the West Bottoms. That is brought to you all by our partner, the Chicano Center for the Arts, and the amazing Diana Munoz, who is the founder and the CEO of that organization. That's a sister organization with LEC. If you haven't been to the Chicano Arts Festival, go. They have a partnership with the lowrider clubs, as well as the lowrider bicycle clubs. And so all that will be on display. They'll have a ton of entrepreneurial tents that people can buy merchandise, great food. There's a ton of food trucks that come. It's just a great experience. And it's on Sunday. The Chiefs don't play on Sunday. I know you don't want to watch anyone else. Chiefs don't play till Monday night. So it's a great day. It's supposed to be great this weekend, not hot. And then like my plug, I have to throw the weather in too. So it's not supposed to rain. It's not going to be hot. Come down, eat some great food, buy some stuff from your community. And then on September the 18th, which is a Saturday, we are hosting our annual Evolución program, which is a program for educators. And we're going to have several storytellers as part of that. And the Evolución this year is all virtual. So you can join us in your pajamas and you have your cafecito, and it's from 10 to noon, and learn all these great stories here, all these great stories and great information about our community, our Latino community from across the United States. Again, Saturday, October the 18th, and that is from 10 a.m. to noon. And if you haven't registered for that, please do so. Again, it's going to be virtual. It's on Crowdcast, which is a platform that we haven't used in a little bit, but we're going to use it for this go around. And we have some amazing, amazing speakers. So please keep an eye open for that. Thank you again, Laura. Thank you so much for all you're doing for our young people, for our community as a whole there at Argentine and across the Kansas City metropolitan area. Thank you, LEC Land. Thank you for your support and your appreciation of everything that we do. Again, try to make it out this weekend for the Chicano Center for the Arts, Chicano Arts Festival, which is down in the West Bottoms. If you need more information, check out our socials, and you can find out where and when and all that other good stuff. Take care. Have a wonderful weekend, and we'll talk to you next week.